Really living is knowing Jesus, knowing him personally. There is nothing else in this world that's the same as knowing Jesus. And only when Jesus is in your life are you really living.
When you embrace life's journey with a purposeful outlook and a focused perspective, when you have a passion for mission, extreme service, and abundant giving, a dedicated character with relentless strength and courage, when your spirit is at peace, that's really living.
My guest today, Herb Larson, has been at the top of his field in several fields. He was raised in a Christian home, but he said only after knowing Jesus did he really start living. You were a Christian in a way all your life.
Yeah, I was born going to church. And on top of it, my dad was a pastor, so I should have had every advantage in the world.
But it wasn't enough.
No, you know, I mean, like I always read in the Bible how God wants to give us the abundant life. And I found that very frustrating. You know, when I have this anticipation that something great is going to happen and it doesn't happen, you know, you get disillusioned pretty easy. And so I went most of my life kind of, you know, coming to the edge of disillusionment and then getting back into it. And yeah, it was quite frustrating, actually, to be honest.
You were thinking in college about what kind of a career?
Well, I took biochemistry, but, you know, when I finished that, what am I going to do with that? So I decided, what do I enjoy most? It's creating things. So I decided to get into engineering and designing and building equipment. So that's what I do for a living. And I like it because it's like playing with Lego toys, only get paid for it. So
You've had several other careers, though, along the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, if you call them careers, I've always been a driven person. Like, I'm like everybody else. You know, when I was in high school and I graduated and I sat on my graduating platform, I had these great big visions of what I wanted to do with my life, you know, in college when I graduated as well. You know, you have these ideas, I want to do this, I want to be this, I want to be somebody in society. We all want to be relevant. And so I had these huge ideas of what I wanted to be, and so I went out, you know, hitting the road like, you know, I wanted to accomplish it all as quickly as I could. And you know what? I did.
You were successful.
Well, success came quite easy because everything I tried seemed to work, you know. And but what I noticed is, you know, like I always wanted to freelance write, so I did that. Got published, you know, and then I liked art because, you know, my mother had me in art painting classes when I was in grade 3. And of course, nothing wrong with having grandmothers as fellow students, but that's all who was taking art classes in the community where I live.
I see.
So here's this grade 3 kid with all these grandmothers taking oil painting. So I've been involved in all the arts and music, so I pursued art, and that went very well with selling art in Chicago, New York.
You actually sold some art?
Oh, absolutely, all over the place. Yeah,
what kind of art?
I specialize in painting Canada's native peoples. Like I would try to capture their life as it was, I should say. And so I would paint portraits of them doing what they do, and that became quite popular, and I started selling around the world, and started
You sold these?
Oh yeah, to galleries in Chicago, New York, and Toronto, and all these different places, selling artwork, and then, of course, that opened up to companies wanting me to illustrate books, you know, so I started illustrating for major publishers, children's books and middle school textbooks, and then that led to painting for Hollywood celebrities.
Like who?
Well, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I painted for Robert Shapiro, and you know.
What did you paint for these guys?
Portraits.
Why did they call?
Well, if you really want to know, I'll get into that. They called not because I'm some great artist. They called because God needs them to hear about Jesus, and that's my passion in life. God's so desperate, he hauls me out of British Columbia, Canada, and says, we've got to send him down, I guess.
So you believe that God set this up?
Yeah, I mean, but I pursued all these things for human ideas first. Like, I mean, writing music and writing orchestral stuff. I did that because I wanted to accomplish that. And I did it until I actually accomplished it. You know, when I'd see myself written up in articles or you know, whatever, see my name splashed out there, that should have been it. That should have made me feel like, wow, you know, like I've arrived. But every time I went down a pathway, and accomplished and went beyond the goal that I actually thought I would do. When I got to the end of it, it was like, okay, now what? This wasn't this thrill I thought it would be. That's been my whole life. And so immediately you have to set another goal and go after that one. And then when you get there, okay, now what? It's even emptier than the first time I met a goal.
What's this story about guns?
Oh, yeah, well, my mother, who of course is a pastor's wife, when I was in college, wrote me a letter one time and says, you ought to learn how to engrave guns, because she was always... Engrave. You take a chisel and hammer and you carve the steel in the gun, not the wood. And then I inlay gold, silver, and platinum. Make a long story short, she kept pressuring me to do this, and I found a guy who was one of the top 10 master gun engravers in the U.S., and while I was going to university, I decided to... because this guy lived a half an hour away, and I asked him if I could come and visit him. Well, make a long story short, I spent a year and a half studying under this guy and learned the gun engraving business, and then I went to Wisconsin and spent a whole summer there working under another renowned gun engraver. And of course, when magazines would come and want to write articles about them or whatever, they are asking, do you have a protege or whatever? Well, I sort of was a protege to these guys, you know, and so in 1979, I think it was, I got into Guns magazine. And then after that, you know, various other publications. So now what would a Christian be doing playing around with guns? It's a good question. You know, I mean, originally it was, okay, I want to do this until I'm the best that I can be, and at least I get recognized for this. And so for a number of years, I felt a little bit guilty as a Christian, maybe, you know, involved in this. But then it led me into engraving guns for people like the Hells Angels. And I got in very close to them, not on a social level so much, but on a client, you know, artist relationship sort of a thing. And wow, I was surprised how much my lifestyle influenced to those kind of people. And so all those different areas of my life, now God uses in a huge way to reach people. When I started out with the wrong motive. But the cool thing is God has a plan for each one of us, from at a minimum the foundation of the world, but certainly when we're in our mother's womb, if we look at what the Bible says. So there was this plan for me. And just like Paul, who kind of deviated from the plan and, you know, was out persecuting Christians, maybe I didn't quite go that radical, but whatever, I was doing my own thing. But in doing my own thing, God still had a plan. Now I get to use all the arts that I'm involved in to reach people that nobody else would. Who else gets invited to Hollywood parties to go share Christ?
Tell me about the Entrepreneur magazine in Canada. What did they say about you?
Oh, well, I mean, in the engineering field, you know, what I do is I create machinery. It's like art to me almost. I create machinery that nobody else will tackle. My company, we design and build high-tech equipment that's all computer run. And so we build for companies like Bayer, which is the aspirin company, and these big, huge cement plants. We would do work all over the world for multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies. Why would they call me? I'm just this little guy out of British Columbia. So it has nothing to do with me. This is what I want to get into, is you give your life over to God, two things will happen. One, as he promises in Deuteronomy 28, he says, I'll make you head and shoulders above all people in honor and respect and name. I'll make you the head and not the tail. So when he does that, and people are looking up to you, you can say, not me, him, because they're already looking up. So then he blesses. He gives you these accounts that you could never earn. I don't advertise. I don't even know if there's a website. Maybe there's one floating around in cyberspace anymore. I don't know. But I don't advertise. I don't wine and dine like I used to, you know, go on golf games and lunches. I don't do any of that stuff. And yet one job after another comes in from all over the world. How do you explain that? But I get to share with all these people Christ. I share with everybody I do business with.
This magazine said you were somebody special, your company.
Well, I mean, there's been various articles, but some of them feature all sorts of things. I mean, I don't know which magazine, because, I mean, there's been a number of them, but...
They said you and your brothers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's... Yeah, because my brothers and I were partners for a number of years manufacturing wood stoves, and so we're sort of the alternate energy boys, you know. And, yeah, I guess through the years, everybody... you know, can't understand how somebody can be so creative in so many different areas. Well, if you've got God on yourself, we're told that I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. And I take that as my motto in life.
But somehow this stuff did not bring you any excitement or any happiness.
That's the problem. When I was pursuing it for the money purposes, business for money, art, music, engraving, writing dramas, writing stage productions, whatever. When I did that for human, sense of accomplishment or glorification, it was a dead-end street every time I got there.
The success didn't mean anything.
Absolutely not. That's the one thing I know for sure. Because see, the thing is here's the way it works.